Good rising, brethren. This is Big Judah coming to you guys from California. Before I begin, I'm going to give all praises to the Most High, Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother, who is wisdom, who is the Holy Spirit. Acknowledgement to Yahweh Shai. I pray that the Most High blesses this lesson this evening, gives more knowledge and understanding of the events of the past, in order to understand the events that are currently happening on the earth, so we get a much better understanding of the things that are soon to come on the earth. We're going to get into this one real quick. We know that, the Gentiles have had they had a Renaissance period, a rebirth. We know that their rebirth was pretty much predicated on them coming over and being given the lands of the Israelites, the hidden lands, the fourth part. And they pretty much have taken all of our information and never told anybody where they got this information from, but took all of the credit for everything that they became after they came back into power. They never gave credit to the fact that they took all this information from the Israelites. They never gave credit to the Most High, that He was the one that blessed them with the knowledge and understanding of His chosen people in order to raise them up. So now, in this video tonight, you're going to see how they stole some very pertinent information. Information that without this information they took from us, they would have never been able to get the times correct. They would have never been able to raise to the pinnacle that they are at today. And you're going to see how they took the information, never told anyone where they got it from, and took credit for it for themselves. Now, if they've done it with this, as far as like times, it was talked about in Daniel how they were going to change the times. This video right now is going to pretty much show you exactly how they've already changed the times, destroyed the times, just like I said they would in the book of Daniel. Another huge prophecy that has already been fulfilled by the Catholic Church. Here we go. And I mean, just wait, because this information I had never even heard of before. And just shows you how deep the deception goes. The place that they have over in the Vatican, I said, I've never even heard of this place before. You're going to hear about it this evening. But before we do that, let's set up the fact that the information that they say that they claim that they got all of a sudden, they just figured out all on their own, originated over here. Let's make sure I've already done this video. I've done it on this information a couple times, but I want to make sure that anybody who hasn't seen it before, it's all in one video, and you can see how they stole information and took credit for it themselves, all the way up until today. Okay, that was the book that I'm getting this from, Archaeology and the Book of Mormon. Okay, the Mayan priest astrologers. Okay, they plotted the courses of the planets, including dim and elusive Mercury, so accurately were the measurements of those ancient Mayan astronomers that they differ only slightly in degrees and minutes from those of our present day astronomers, aided by powerful telescopes and advanced mathematical formulas. They were fully aware of a 365 and a quarter day year and developed a calendar, of an 18-month year and 20 days each, plus a 5-day week at the end of each year. To take care of the remaining 1/4 day, they made corrections for leap year at convenient intervals. This they computed and put into daily practice long before the Julian calendar was adopted in Rome, and in consequence, centuries before Pope Gregory VIII, or the 13th, called for a conference in 1582, when our present-day calendar was created. Now, this is very important that you understand this. They're already saying that this they computed and put into daily practice long before the Julian calendar was adopted in Rome, and in consequence, centuries before Pope Gregory XIII called for a conference in 1582, when our present-day calendar was created. Now, that 1582 is going to be very important in this video. So we have already established the point that this calendar was already in existence over here in the Most High's chosen lands. Already here, okay? So these guys are really good. And just remember now, anything they've established, that anything that happened before Columbus got here, they were not going to accept. Now, they accepted it all right. They just kept it a secret from the rest of you guys. They kept this information for themselves. That's what they've done. You know, they're using it. They used it, but they told the whole world that anything before Columbus got here, we're not going to accept. Well, like I said, they accepted it. They just took it over there to, to their secret places, their secret laboratories, and have been working on it ever since. I'm going to continue a little more. The old Mayan astronomers didn't stop with their observations of the movements of the sun, the moon, and the 5 known planets, but compiled tables of lunar eclipses and predicted these with astounding accuracy. And they know why, because like I said, these people they came from the Hebrew stock. That's why. I'll read a little bit more. I actually got cut off at the bottom, but you guys can just listen to it. In his most recent book, The Rise and Fall of Maya Civilization, Dr. J. Eric S. Thompson discussed at considerable length the astronomical knowledge attained by the Mayas. He declared that it was a great intellectual achievement for the Maya priest astronomers to construct a table for predicting when solar eclipses would be visible. He, like most writers, gives the Mayas full credit for the complete development of all their astronomical knowledge. However, it may be possible that they inherited many ideas from their ancestors, the ancient Israelites. Okay? The ancient Hebrew prophets attained a profound knowledge of the stars, okay, and planets by direct revelation from heaven. For example, the Lord appeared to Abraham and gave him power to look into space as if he were using a modern telescope. The Lord, and we'll stop right there. Now, remember now, the Pope is supposed to be the vicar of Christ. He's supposed to have a direct line to the Most High. So you would think that if he was the vicar of Christ, that he would actually have this information, that the Most High would have downloaded this information to the Pope and to the Catholic Church. He would have needed to come over here across the great waters, over the great seas, in order to, to pretty much steal the information from the natives over here, right? If he was supposedly the vicar of Christ. But you can tell the real people of the Most High have this knowledge and understanding of the stars. The rest of the people do not, because the Most High, like we said before, he deals only with his people and he gives them this knowledge and understanding. I did a video a while ago where he told these lands are higher up and closer to the heavens. So we were able to see the heavens much better and have a much better understanding of what was going on in the heavens with the planets and everything else than the rest of the world. And that is held true. Only reason they got it was because the Most High allowed them to come over here, steal it, take it back to their lands, and then act like it was always that they were the ones that figured it out. They were the ones that were so smart. And they're going to be shown right here now that that was not the case. So let me read a little bit more. It says, the Lord at the bottom. Okay. Sorry, my picture wasn't the best, but showed Abraham a marvelous vision of the numerous works he had created and explained the various heavenly bodies at which Abraham was looking. The ancient prophet wrote, I saw the stars, that they were very great, and they multiplied before mine eyes, and I could not see the end thereof. The Lord explained to the ancient patriarch the times, seasons, and the laws which govern the solar system. Okay, that's huge, right? The Lord, the Most High, explained to the ancient patriarch the times, seasons, and the laws which govern the solar systems. Now, if you think about this, now we're talking about Abraham, right? Remember how a couple of videos ago I talked about how there was nothing to prove that Abraham was over there in the 3 parts in the so-called Middle East. They couldn't find any archaeological evidence to prove that. Now, If he wasn't over there, makes sense, and he was over here, it would make sense then as to why the three parts had all of the information about the stars wrong, the information about the calendar wrong, everything. They had everything wrong. They might have been close, but they didn't have it correct. So so even if you look through history, it still makes a point that everything was happening over here, that our forefathers were over here in the Americas. Okay. Now it's going to be hard to prove exactly because some people have taken all of our records and hidden them, and we all know who that is. So let's continue. The knowledge of astronomy received by Father Abraham and recorded by his posterity, his kids, his children, is in complete agreement with modern astronomical science. Moses also received revelations from the Lord regarding astronomy and a vision of the heavenly bodies, the Most High's creations, similar to those received by Abraham. In their scriptures, these ancient Hebrew patriarchs handed down their knowledge of astronomy to their posterity, okay, or to their children, okay? The Nephites brought the Hebrew scriptures with them from the holy city to the New World. And so one is not surprised to find such statements in the Book of Mormon as the following: As it appeareth unto man that the sun standeth still, yea, and behold, that is not so. For surely it is the earth that moveth, and not the sun. Perhaps the basic ideas of astronomy which the Nephites had were handed down to the Mayas. Okay, so now we have a complete understanding that the Aztecs here, or the Hebrews here, already had all this knowledge and understanding, and that the other nations did not have this understanding. But all of a sudden, after they came over here, and then they went back to their lands, all of a sudden they started to get this explosion of understanding and information. No one knows exactly, how they got it. They're not telling you how they got it. They just all of a sudden just got really smart really fast somehow. Well, now I got a couple of videos I'm going to show you about a secret place in the Vatican. Like I said, I'd never heard of this place before, but now you're going to start to see. You can put two and two together. You're going to see that all of a sudden they came here, they were exposed to information, and then all of a sudden they started figuring things out. But like they told everybody else, anything pre-Columbus, they won't accept. That's not true, because they accepted all of it. They just never told you where they got the information from. Okay, so we're going to go right here to this right here. We're going to watch a couple minutes of this video right here.
Rising up out of the long lines of museums, this square tower is off limits to the hordes of tourists passing below. But inside is one of the most remarkable rooms in the Vatican. Built in 1580, it's called the Tower.
1580. Okay, so there you go. Start putting it together.
Of the Winds. The Julian calendar was instituted in 45 BC by Julius Caesar himself. But by the time the tower was constructed, suspicion was building that Caesar's calendar was slipping.
So all of a sudden, suspicion was just building that their calendar was off. They already knew their calendar was off as soon as they got a hold of our calendars over here.
This whole room is a scientific instrument created to show to the Pope that the old Julian calendar was wrong.
This room was designed to check the accuracy of the calendar by measuring the altitude of the sun at noon according to the meteorological seasons.
At midday, the sun projects a spot of light near this meridian.
On the spring equinox, the sunbeam should hit this symbol embedded in the floor. But when it came, the beam was off, proving the calendar was wrong. A solar year was shorter than anyone had thought, by about 11 minutes. Over time, those minutes became significant.
One day a century really wasn't going to cause them a big problem.
except after 15 centuries, it was beginning to add up.
So Pope Gregory XIII ordered that 10 days from October 1582 be completely erased from the calendar. He also decreed that the new year would begin on January 1st, not in late March as it did before.
All right. So as you can see, they went and jacked the information because many of our buildings over here were already set up, aligned with the spring equinox, fall equinox, all that stuff. So our new year, based on equal day and equal night. So they came over here, got exposed to all these buildings that we had already set up. Okay. And they just took that over there and said, oh, we're going to make we're going to set up an astronomical building here. All right. And then we're going to come up with this information now. So they pretty much just went ahead, they got our information, went back over there to Europe and just set it up themselves. In the 1580s, all of a sudden, you guys have been wrong the entire time. You come over here and get exposed to the truth, and you go back over there and you set it up. You gotta love it. I said you gotta love it. Let me see here if I want to show you guys the next clip of another video here for just about a minute. Here we go.
I'm trying to think what else we saw. We saw what is called, look this up. Go to the website, the internet, and Google Tower of the Winds, and make sure you put Rome. Tower of the Winds, Rome. It's where they all got together and said, hey, listen, Mr. Pope or Sir Pope or Your Holiness, this is what we have to do. Our calendar is wrong. And it's all a small room of frescoes where the Lord is calming the seas, and God is seen up at the top, and he's kind of blowing the winds, but his mouth is a little teeny hole that goes to the outside. And I think it was on March 20th, that lines up with the sun, and it shoots, just like in Indiana Jones. Remember when they needed the staff of Ra or whatever it was? It shoots light down onto the floor in a certain place, and then that light traces patterns on the floor all day, and it shows what the calendar needs to be 365 and a half days. When we got out of there, when one of the guys who was with us, the theologian, said, we're in the Tower of the Winds? And the other guy said, yes, we are. He said, oh my gosh. Only like 100 people a year, and I was told 100 people, and that includes like the Pope and his buddies, get to go into this. And I wish, I'm trying.
All right, so there we go. So now you see how this all is all working out. They went over there and made a little observatory in the Vatican, drilled some holes so that at certain times of the year the light would show you exactly what time of the year it is, exactly like our buildings do. A lot of the pyramids they have down in Teotihuacan in Mexico, and over there in the Yucatan, many of our pyramids were observatories, letting us know what time of the year it was. Because that was the thing that we used. Our clock was like the heartbeat of our society. It told us the things that we needed to do. Like I said, it was letting us know when we needed to plant, when we needed to harvest, when were our holy days, all that stuff. So see, that's why, because we had to have precise times, precise, instruments to show us exactly what time of the year it is, because that's what our whole society was based off of. There's time periods over there were all off. And we started doing more research to see that. And then they realized it once they came over here and saw the truth and saw how we had everything set up. Then all of a sudden they had to run back and change their clock, their calendars, and everything else. And then even when they found out the truth, they went ahead and changed it and started their year in January. And that's there in the late 1500s. Just absolutely amazing. This book right here, The Secret Archives of the Vatican, Most High just led me to this information real quick for me to be able to, he exposed me to this to this place in the Vatican I never heard of before. And I'm going to read a little bit of it to you guys right now. There's a lot of historical stuff. Let me see here. Get it real quick. I just had it, and then the Tower of the Winds. Okay, here it is. I'm gonna read there's like a little bit of a paragraph before this. Okay, at the time of the Renaissance, Europe was still using, okay, with slight changes, the Julian calendar. The Sysigynus of Alexandria had worked out for Caesar. Okay, so even during the time of the Renaissance, they didn't have a good grasp of what was going on. They were still following the wrong calendar. So they weren't doing, they weren't Renaissancing it too much. They weren't figuring things out too much until they got a chance to get over there, over here to the Americas and get our stuff. All right. Let's see. So Sysigynus of Alexandria had worked out for Caesar. As centuries passed, it became apparent that there had been a very slight error in calculating the length of the year, so that the vernal equinox kept occurring earlier and earlier in the calendar year. Okay. The Council of Trent recommended the revision of the calendar, and to carry out the task, Gregory the 13th, 1572 to 1585, built an observatory in the Vatican in the middle of the Belvedere galleries, called the Tower of the Winds. It is part of the secret archives now, and books fill its ancillary rooms, lapping against the frescoes. One can reach it only through the archives. Visiting it is impossible for the tourist and difficult for the scholar. Yeah, they don't want people visiting it because they might figure out the fact that, hey, this kind of looks like the same things as goes on with the pyramids over in the Americas. They might put put two and two together and realize that they just copied the information from the natives, from the Hebrews over here, from the Israelites. It made it seem like they're the ones that all of a sudden they just decided to just get together and they figured it all out on their own. We know that's far from the truth. You couldn't figure it out for thousands of years before. You wouldn't just figure it out after a couple years, in a observatory you just made up. Okay, so now we're catching them now within the lie. They took at the time when they were over here, and all of a sudden they just started getting. All of a sudden they got intelligent real quick, right? I got another one. The Vatican Secret Archives, I think 2009 book right here. We're going to catch them in some more lies, taking credit for things that they didn't do. This is on page, I think, 59. It's a really big book. It's more so kind of like if you wanted to put it on a table when you had visitors, and they could think that you read something. This is the kind of book you put out there. Something to kind of get people to start having a conversation. But let's see here. It's on page 59 of this book. It's more so, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to read some of it, but you don't have to read the whole thing. It's not necessary. Let's see here. We'll start in the middle where it says the Council of Nicaea, 325, established... Hopefully you guys can still hear me. I had my thing on top of my head. The Council of Nicaea established the date for Easter as the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. At that time, the problem with the Julian calendar became apparent because the spring equinox fell on the 21st of March, according to the calendar. While the council noted the discrepancy, it took no action to correct the problem. Well, of course, because they didn't know how to correct it. They couldn't fix it because they didn't have the understanding to fix it. Not until they came over here and got the real download did they try to fix anything. While in 325, the equinox fell on the 21st of March in 1582. It fell on the 11th of March, according to the Julian calendar, which, with the passage of time, the discrepancy became more evident and rendered a reform of the Julian calendar more necessary. Various attempts to correct the calendar are documented prior to the establishment of a special commission in 1576, which was charged with the task of definitively resolving the problem of the calendar. The commission eventually accepted a proposal made by Luigi Giglio, a medical doctor and astronomer from Calabria. In his work, the Compendium Novae Rationis, I'm not going to try to read the rest, which was published in 1577, he suggested, among other things, the suppression of 10 days so as to realign the date of the astronomical equinox with that of the canonical equinox, which had been fixed at the 21st of March. Giglio also proposed reducing the discrepancy of the Julian calendar by restricting leap years to numbers before 0, which were divisible by 4. Thus, while the year 2000 was a leap year, 1900 was not. Okay, let's see here. On the 24th, 1582, Gregory XIII issued the bull Inter Gravismas, in which he adopted the proposals of the commissions, suppressed 10 days between the 4th, 15th of October, 1582, and issued new criteria for determining leap years. Okay, now this is where it gets really good, and the middle there is kind of blocked, and that's some of the important information. The correction of the calendar was quickly applied in Italy, Spain, and Portugal. The reformed calendar also came into force in the American and Asiatic colonies of Spain and Portugal. Given the slowness of communications with some of these dependencies, let me get this right here. I gotta get in the light because it's in really small writing. Dependencies. Instructions were given to implement the reform of the calendar by deleting the days 10 to the 21st February 1583. The reception of the Gregorian reform was much slower in the non-Catholic European states, which, check this part out right here, as Kepler quipped, preferred to be in disharmony with the heavenly bodies rather than in harmony with the Pope. He says, thus Great Britain introduced the Gregorian reform of the calendar only in 1752 and Russia in 1918. But the main thing right there is when Kepler quipped, they preferred to be in disharmony with the heavenly bodies rather than in harmony with the Pope. So they're sitting here trying to imply like that the Pope was in line with the heavenly bodies. Why would that be? Because he was the vicar of Christ, and he had like a special line to Christ in order to be able to understand the heavenly bodies, in order to fix our calendar. But they already knew their calendar was wrong, and they couldn't, but they couldn't fix it until they went over to the Americas and got the real information. But you see, they didn't give information. They didn't give any credit to the fact that the natives, they got this information from the natives. They made it seem like the Pope was in harmony with the heavenly bodies and the calendar, but it wasn't him. It was the Israelites that were over here in the Americas. And since they couldn't understand it, it took them hundreds of years to try to decipher all this information. But then when they did finally get some understanding, they kept the credit for themselves. So like I said, we got them again with more lies, as you can easily see, that they had a bad calendar. They knew they needed to fix it. They didn't know how. They came over here. They got the Renaissance download from the Hebrews over here, took the information back to them, to their lands, and acted like they were the ones that fix everything. Thank the Most High for giving us knowledge and understanding, being able to bring all this information back together and being able to give it back to the nation. All praises to the Most High Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother, who is wisdom, who is the Holy Spirit. Acknowledgement to Yahweh Shai. Shalom.